Shalom and all that. How are we? All right? Good. America. America and cars. Cars and America. America and cars light vehicle sales annualized going back to 1967. And let's just deal with the modern day. After that last blue Great Recession line, things are getting back to normal-ish. The line's at 13.36, I think, which is really quite good, if selling cars is a measure of really quite good. It certainly says that there is plenty of bang still in the American economy. It's not brilliant. This is the thing. It's not brilliant, but it's really not bad. Moving on. Bloomberg gives us budget gaps open in fewer states as tax collections rebound. And the states are finding ways of getting tax into the state's central treasury. But of course that money comes out of the economy to go into the state coffers. But it's not collapsing. And this is one that certainly can't be fudged, and that kick up at the end, the last few months, is from the withholding taxes, and Americans know what the withholding taxes are, and you can't fudge that. Basically, you have to be working to be paying the withholding taxes, and it's on the way up. So again, these numbers are a long way down from where they were in the good old days, but they're not going downwards. But the trouble, or one of the major troubles that's underlying everything, and the reason these things are not looking bad but certainly aren't going good, are total delinquent and foreclosures here. You can see delinquencies in red have gone down from their maximum January 2010. But they're still far above any sort of norm, this chart going back to 1995. And the green is obviously a major problem that's undermining major parts of the economy, which are foreclosures, which used to run at about 0.5%, but now are at 4.3% and increasing. So that can never be good. Meanwhile, in the the political sphere, we have Newt Gingrich, getting ahead on all these polls, the CNN, all of the polls. He's ahead now of Wall Street pick, who's Romney, and Kane will probably drop out. And Perry's nowhere in sight, and the other loons are just trailing off. FT.com, global economy, global output picture worsens. So we're going to now try and put the American economy in comparison, or in comparison to the rest of the world. Global output picture worsens. The fortunes of the world's manufacturers diverged last month as factories in the US churned out goods at a decent pace, while those in Asia, particularly China and Europe, grappled with deteriorating conditions. The global picture is worsening slightly for manufacturers as the Eurozone crisis seeps from the financial markets into the real economy. But conditions are neither as bad nor as uniform as in the dark days of 2008 and 9. But I note from this, that's written by Sarah O'Connor and Robin Harding, who are in Washington. Now, people that go to Washington, their heads kind of disappear a bit. And that is the perspective, probably, of America. But it really does not represent the real perspective of the world. It's not bad, but it's nuanced towards optimism. FT Alphaville, Isabella Kaminska, gives us Chinese manufacturing activity slows. Chinese manufacturing activity has contracted for the first time in almost 3 years, adding to fears about the health of the global economy. The decline comes a day after the US Federal Reserve led a coordinated move to ease global liquidity concerns, particularly in Europe, and the Chinese central bank loosened monetary policy. Chinese government data released on Thursday showed that the official purchasing managers index fell to 49, so that's on the wrong side of 50, in November from 50.4 in October. The worse than expected fall marked the first decline since February 2009. A reading of less than 50 means the manufacturing sector has contracted. In a surprise move that was clearly timed to offset the negative impact of the PMI numbers, China's central bank on Wednesday kicked off a new round of monetary easing by announcing a cut in the reserve ratios for banks for the first time in 3 years. So like India was fighting against inflation by raising their reserve requirements, interest rates, China has started, as India has now, of now lowering them again, thinking that inflation, the back of it's been broken, but really because the world is slowing down. Over in Europe, those PMIs that all came out, Ireland, if we're looking at the top right of this, Ireland's on top for the manufacturing PMIs at 48.5, ahead of Germany at 47.9, and then we just go worse and worse through Austria, France, Netherlands, 46. Now 46 is close to 45. 45 is really talking recession sort of number. Getting through 50, it's not good, obviously, it's heading in the wrong direction. But getting down towards 45 and you're looking at another recession. So Netherlands 46, Italy then 44, Spain 44 and Greece 41. Europe really running into trouble. But the rest of the world, the PMIs, I think nobody. Russia and Turkey, I think, were positive. Just about the rest of the world's PMIs outside the United States were negative. An awful lot of negativity out there. Do not be fooled in America, and do not be fooled into thinking that you can get away with it when the world is going down. You can't. Carrying on in Europe, in the way Europe carries on, this is from the Wall Street Journal, and that's important that this is a Wall Street Journal article by Francis Robinson, because the world is looking at Europe and basically peeping through its fingers and banging its head on its keyboards, because it has not a clue what the European people think that they're doing. And they have got the real idea that the European people have, as in politicians, have no stuffing idea what they're doing. And not only that, they don't even seem to be panicking about getting any sort of ideas together. And this is shouted from these opening paragraphs here. 9 crucial days to save the euro. Yes, there's another meeting at the 9th of December. Emergency swap lines put in place overnight by the world's top central banks. A new captain taking over a huge, recently built ship in the middle of a raging storm. That's the euro. And if there was ever a time when publicly elected representatives should be grilling the head of the ECB, this is it. So when Mario Draghi, the new boy, arrived at the European Parliament Thursday, your correspondent, that's Francis Robinson, was amazed to see the former Goldman Sachs executive playing to a virtually deserted house. A rough leaning over the balcony head count gave 35 MEPs out of 736 present. Now, the world is watching this. And what are they meant to do? Are they meant to go, oh, what are they meant to think? Part of what America's thinking this now of Britain from Paulie Krugman, Bleeding Britain, who writes, these days ambulance chaser economists like yours truly have an embarrassment of riches. So much is going wrong in so many places that one hardly knows where to start. But let's spare a moment for a disaster that's being overshadowed by the euro crisis. Britain's experiment in austerity. When the Cameron government came in, it was fully invested in the doctrine of expansionary austerity. Officials told everyone to read Alesina and Ardagna's paper, which is succinctly criticised by Christina Roma's PDF. It isn't. Don't read the Christina Roma PDF. Cited Ireland as a success story and generally assured everyone that they could call the confidence fairy from the vasty deep. And there isn't a confidence fairy. That's why it's a fairy. Again, Wall Street Journal, big article in the source running by Ainsley Thompson about Britain. The full extent of the painful squeeze on British households was revealed in stark terms yesterday. Households will be worse off in real terms in 2015 than they were in 2002. In money terms, that means the average household income in 2015 will be £22,500, £260 lower than it was 13 years earlier in 2002. That's not slowly boiling a frog, that's really getting the temperature up a bit. But the Britons aren't noticing. Don't think they are not. They're going, oh, hello. They're not noticing. They don't notice this. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, the respective economic think tank that conducted the analysis, says that this means Britons are living through the worst period for average living standards since consistent records began in the 50s. The IFS director Paul Johnson said the Institute has run out of superlatives to describe just how extraordinary the impact of this decline will be. So have I. But this is similar to what's happening around the world, and people just don't notice. It's quite extraordinary. Try.